And now see, this is exactly what I was talking about. This is why we don't play economic games with him. Today we're going to take a look at a game where you try to buy things when they're cheap and sell them when they're expensive. However, instead of Beanie Babies, tulips, NFTs, stocks, or other artificially inflated commodities, we're looking at the one constant on Earth: comic books. The comic book bubble. And before we get too into the weeds, I'd like to point out that everything you see here today is a prototype and not indicative of the final product. The easiest way for me to understand the concepts in this game is to put myself in the role of a comic book shop owner, which is slightly different than what the flavor text may have intended. It's a stock trading game, almost pure and simple, and I say almost because while you are certainly buying and selling, there's a duality to that trading mechanism, because once you sell something, instead of it being just gone forever, it goes into your back catalog to be scored at the end of the game. This is a card-driven game, and in it cards are comics, and comics are your commodities. Each comic has multiple icons on it, corresponding to different genres. Each of these genres is worth a specific dollar amount that's constantly shifting, but more on that in a little bit. The kicker here is that most of the cards have multiple genres on it, which feels a little like another stock trading game that I really enjoy, Stockpile, where you're bidding on groupings of stocks and not just one single individual one. Maybe you're not buying all the genres you want, but it could be worth it to lump a less valuable genre in with ones you really are aiming for. The game takes place over 4 rounds, and each round has 4 turns in it. On a turn, you look at your ever-dwindling hand of comics and choose one to complete an action with. And the nature of those ever-dwindling cards is because this is a drafting game. You pick a card for the turn, play it, and at the end of the turn, hand the card to the player next to you. All actions are selected simultaneously by all players. And these actions are: buy. To do this, you look at the genre symbols on the card you want to buy, and you cross-reference the board, paying the current dollar amount for each of those symbols. Then you place it above your player board. And that area above the player board only has room for 3 cards, which is why I thought of this almost as if it was a storefront. This was my stock and I could only hold so much. So maintaining the balance of being able to sell stock when it's at the right price is really important. You don't want to be stuck with a whole storefront full of items that are going to lose you money. The second action you can take is Superpower. Here's where things start to get interesting. Each card has a specific action to manipulate the game state in some way. Most of the time it's shifting values for specific genres, but the variety is enough to keep things fresh and nerve-wracking. This allows you to make bigger and weirder moves than you could with Speculation, which leads me to the third action, Speculate. This action is where the real shifting happens. You count up each symbol on all cards that were chosen to take this speculation action and move the genre token along the value track that many times. Ooh. Yeah, no, this seems like a good spot to segue. The way each genre value is calculated is purely by its position on a track. As it moves further along the track, it rises in value until it starts going down the other side, in which case it drops. Predicting and manipulating where the genres you're currently focusing on is the bread and butter of the game, and balancing that is tough because if you do end up taking the buy action, it's the only action that does not allow you to sell at the end of a turn. Gauging the trajectory of future value is crucial and so fun when you get it just right. After all actions have been taken, anybody that did not take the buy action has the option to sell one of the comics in their stock. And once you sell a comic, it goes face down into your back stock to potentially be scored again later on in the game. The game goes for a total of 4 rounds, there's some special end of game scoring, and whoever has the most money wins the game. I very much enjoy stock market games, especially ones that can be explained very easily, which this one was a breeze, with a few caveats. The thematic connection of buying and selling comic books in this game is fantastic, especially with the actual comic book art on all the cards. But by calling one of the actions superpowers, it took a little bit of time for me to wrap my head around the fact that it wasn't a superpower, it was just another way to manipulate the market. It's an extremely small gripe, especially after playing the game, but it was one that while reading the rulebook tripped me up just a little bit. With such hard and fast real-world terms and dollar amounts, throwing in a term like superpower was a little bit confusing. In addition, because the genres are constantly being shifted by superpower or speculation, it means that you have to physically shift the little markers on the board to indicate what the current market price is for the genre. I was very specifically told by the person that I played this most with, my wife, that I shouldn't even mention this because 1, she was the one that was doing all the shifting, and 2, it's not even that big a deal. But it was the thing that hung up the game the most, I think. It's a neat little package of cards that's easy to understand the rule set too, but once you get going, there's enough nuances and intricacies and player interaction to really realize that you're not going to understand exactly what's going to happen every single time you play this game. And it's that speculation. It's that excitement of potentially being wrong and betting on the wrong horse, figuratively speaking, that is such a draw to me for these types of games. And rather than stocks going up and down, the fact that they are on a circular track is interesting because the stocks are semi-predictable. but those cards can really screw things up in a good way. And so knowing that while one stock falls, another rises, it has this placement measurement that is interesting, unique, fun, and easy to understand. It's a really exciting thing, and it makes me really interested to see what the final product is, because this game is headed to Kickstarter, which I will link in the description if I have a link to it. But yeah, I would highly recommend checking out the Comic Book Bubble, especially if you enjoy stock trading games. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I'd love to hear what your favorite stock trading games are. You can find me on pretty much all social media at Plumpy Thimble, especially TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Thank you very much.